3.1 Graphing parabolas. When an equation is in the form y equals x squared, it forms a parabola, which is a U shape. Y equals x squared. Plug in and make a table. So we're just going to plug in numbers for x and see what we get for y. The equation means whatever you put in for x, that's the y that goes with it. So negative 3 squared means negative 3 times negative 3 equals positive 9. Negative 2 squared equals negative 2 times negative 2 equals 4. Okay, we're squaring it because it says y equals x squared. Negative 1 times negative 1 equals 1. 0 times 0 equals 0. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 3 is 9. So plot our points. Negative 3, 9 means left 3 up 9. Negative 2, 4 means left 2 up 4. Negative 1, 1 is left 1 up 1. 0, 0 is the middle. 1, 1, right 1 up 1. 2, 4, right 2 up 4. 3, 9, right 3 up 9. Okay, so now we're going to look at our graph and talk about a few things. The graph is symmetric, which means the same on both sides of the vertex. The middle point is the vertex. The vertex in this graph is 0, 0. The domain means x. The domain for this graph is negative infinity to infinity. What does that mean? That means we can plug in any number for x in the equation. Let's look at the equation y equals x squared. What can you plug in there? Anything. You could do negative 100 times negative 100. Okay, so the domain is negative infinity to infinity, meaning the x values could be anything. Okay, now what about the range? The range is bracket 0, comma, infinity. The range means the y values. The smallest y will ever be in this equation is 0. If you keep plugging in numbers for x, the y values will keep getting bigger. There is a y value of 0, which is why 0 has a bracket. The y values start at 0 and keep getting bigger. There's a bracket around 0 because you're including 0. There is a y value of 0. Comma infinity is because the y values just keep getting bigger. Okay, if you kept plugging in numbers for x, the y's would just keep getting bigger because when you keep squaring, they just keep getting larger. Okay, we can see that the graph is symmetric about x equals 0. This means it is a mirror image. It is the same on both sides. So x equals 0 is called the axis of symmetry. Symmetry is like a mirror image. So the axis of symmetry means x equals the number where it is symmetric about. Okay, and we can see that the middle is at x equals 0. The general form of a quadratic equation is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Notice how we have the same letters as the quadratic equation. These are quadratic equations. We are graphing them now instead of solving for x. To find the vertex of a parabola, use the formula. The vertex x equals negative b over 2a. This is the same a and b from when we learned about quadratics. Okay, so sometimes the graph could move around. It doesn't always have to be in the middle there. Example 1. Find the vertex of y equals x squared plus 4x plus 3. Okay, I'm going to make this a little bigger. Note that the a is the understood one. So use the vertex formula, x equals negative b over 2a, with a equal 1 and b equals 4. So x equals negative 4 divided by 2 times 1 equals negative 4 divided by 2 equals negative 2. So x equals negative 2 is the vertex. Note that the vertex is a point. A point is in the form x, y. The vertex formula only gives us the x value. To find the y value, we plug in x equals negative 2 in the equation to get y. So y equals negative 2 squared plus 4 times negative 2 plus 3. Y equals negative 2 squared equals 4. 4 times negative 2 is minus 8 plus 3. So y equals 4 minus 8 plus 3, y equals negative 1. So the vertex is x equals negative 2, y equals negative 1. Okay. Vertex is a point. You have to have x, y. Remember, the equation y equals means that tells you what y is based on what you put in for x. Okay. Example 2. Find the vertex of y equals negative x squared minus 2x plus 8. Note that this is understood y equals minus 1x squared minus 2x plus 8. The vertex formula, x equals negative b divided by 2a. A equals negative 1, b equals negative 2. Remember from quadratics that negative b means the opposite sign of b. So the vertex, x equals, the opposite of negative 2 is positive 2, over 2 times negative 1, which is 2 divided by negative 2, which equals negative 1. To find y, plug in x equals negative 1 in the equation. So y equals negative 1 times negative 1 squared minus 2 times negative 1 plus 8. The negative 1 squared equals positive 1. Remember, you do your exponent before you multiply. So the first thing to do is that negative 1 squared, which is positive 1. In the middle, negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 2. Bring over the plus 8. Now we have negative 1 times 1 equals negative 1. Bring over the plus 2, bring over the plus 8, and we get 9. So the vertex is negative 1, 9. X equals negative 1, y equals 9. Now we will graph the parabolas. To graph the parabola, find the vertex. Since it is in the middle of the U shape, we will then find a point that is on the left of the vertex and a point on the right of the vertex. Okay, the vertex means the middle, so find something to the left and to the right. If you're in the middle of people, you have somebody on your left and somebody on your right. Like if you're in the middle of a plane that has a row of 3, there's somebody on your left, there's somebody on your right. Find the vertex. Example 3. Find the vertex, find the axis of symmetry, and find the domain and range for y equals x squared plus 4x plus 3. Note that a is the understood 1. Use the vertex formula. X equals negative b divided by 2a. A is 1, b is 4. X equals negative 4 over 2 times 1, which is negative 4 divided by 2, which equals negative 2. To find the y value, we plug in x equals negative 2 in the equation to get y. Y equals negative 2 squared plus 4 times negative 2 plus 3 equals negative 2 squared equals 4. 4 times negative 2 equals minus 8, and then the plus 3. 4 minus 8 plus 3 equals negative 1. So the vertex is x equals negative 2, y equals negative 1. Since negative 2, negative 1 is the vertex, that means the graph is symmetric about x equals negative 2. The axis of symmetry is x equals negative 2. The axis of symmetry is always the same thing as the vertex, x equals negative 2. Okay, it's always written x equals the number. Okay, you don't just say the number, you say x equals negative 2 for the axis of symmetry. Since the vertex is in the middle, we need at least one point on the left of x equals negative 2 and one point on the right of x equals negative 2. The point x equals negative 3 is on the left of x equals negative 2, since it is one number smaller than negative 2. The point x equals negative 1 is on the right of x equals negative 2, since it is one number bigger than negative 2. Now plug in x equals negative 3 in the equation, y equals x squared plus 4x plus 3 to get the y value. When x equals negative 3, y equals, we're going to plug in the equation, negative 3 squared plus 4 times negative 3 plus 3. Negative 3 squared equals 9. 4 times negative 3 is minus 12 plus 3. 9 minus 12 plus 3 equals 0. When x equals negative 1, we're going to plug in y equals negative 1 squared plus 4 times negative 1 plus 3. Negative 1 squared is 1. 4 times minus 1 is minus 4 plus 3. 1 minus 4 plus 3 equals 0. Note that we got the same numbers for both y values. This is not a coincidence. Remember, it is symmetric, which means you need to have a mirror image. Note that you can keep going forever to get more points. Okay, so here's our graph. The points on the graph are negative 3, 0. That means left 3, up 0. Negative 2, negative 1, left 2, down 1. Negative 1, 0, left 1, up 0. The domain is negative infinity to infinity, since we can keep plugging in numbers for x. The range is bracket negative 1 comma infinity, since the lowest y value is negative 1 and the y values keep getting bigger. Okay, domain means x. With parabolas, you can always plug in any number, but the range will be different depending on where the vertex is. Notice, let me scroll up a little bit. Notice the points negative 3, 0 and negative 1, 0 cross the x-axis. These are called the x-intercepts. The x-intercept means when the graph crosses the x-axis. These are when y equals 0, since these points are up and down 0. Y equals 0. Negative 3, 0 and negative 1, 0 both have 0 in the y value. Okay. To find the x-intercepts for any graph, we will solve the equation by replacing y with 0 and solving for x. Note that this is what we did in Chapter 2, solving quadratic equations. First, see if it factors. Y equals x squared plus 4x plus 3. Replace y with 0 and solve for x. 0 equals x squared plus 4x plus 3. Factor. X squared plus 4x plus 3 is a trinomial with an understood 1. What multiplies to 3 and adds to 4, which would be 3 and 1. Set each factor equal to 0 and solve for x. X plus 3 equals 0. Subtract 3, x equals negative 3. X plus 1 equals 0, subtract 1, x equals negative 1. This is when y equals 0 because we replaced y with 0. So when x equals negative 3, y equals 0. This is the point negative 3, 0. When x equals negative 1, y equals 0. This is the point negative 1, 0. Negative 3, 0 and negative 1, 0 are called x-intercepts. We can use them to graph. Example 4. Find the vertex, find the axis of symmetry, x-intercepts, and find the domain for the equation y equals negative 5 minus 6x minus x squared. Okay, that should actually say find the domain and range. Note that the equation is not in descending order. Descending order means the highest power comes first and they get smaller. You must have descending order to have A, B, and C in the right order. So we're going to rewrite y equals minus x squared minus 6x minus 5. Note that this is understood. Y equals minus 1x squared minus 6x minus 5. Find the vertex using the formula. X equals negative b over 2a. A equals negative 1, b equals negative 6. So x equals 6 divided by 2 times negative 1 equals 6 divided by negative 2 equals negative 3. So the axis of symmetry is x equals negative 3. The axis of symmetry is the same as the vertex. X equals negative 3. Find the y value of the vertex by plugging in x equals -3. So y equals -1 times -3 squared minus 6 times -3 minus 5 equals -1 times 9. You do the -3 squared. -6 times -3 is 18 minus 5. -9 plus 18 minus 5 equals 4. So the vertex is -3, 4. You can find 2 points on the left and right by plugging in a number less than -3 and more than -3. That would be -4 and -2. So x equals -4, plug in. Y equals -1 times -4 squared minus 6 times -4 minus 5 equals -1 times 16. The -4 squared equals 16. In the middle, -6 times -4 is 24 minus 5. -16 plus 24 minus 5 equals 3. This is the point -4, 3. Plug in x equals -2. Y equals -1 times -2 squared minus 6 times -2 minus 5. -2 squared equals 4. In the middle, minus 6 minus 2 is 12. Remember, minus 2 squared has to be done first. It's an exponent, which comes before your multiplication. -1 times 4 equals -4, plus 12 minus 5 equals 3. This is the point -2, 3. Notice the 3's are the same. This is because of symmetry. Now find the x-intercepts by plugging in y equals 0 and solving for x. 0 equals -1 x squared minus 6x plus 5. Okay, that -1 in front of the x squared makes it nasty. So what we're going to do is factor the -1 out so that we get x squared as positive. Okay, so we're going to take out the -1 in the front, which will mean everything inside is positive because everything was originally negative. Notice if you distribute the -1 times the trinomial, you would get the original problem. We don't want to factor the original problem. -1x squared is yucky. Okay, so now factor the trinomial inside the parentheses. It's an understood 1 now inside, so what multiplies to 5 and adds to 6 will be 5 and 1. Okay, set each factor equal to 0. Notice that -1 can never equal 0. You could also think of if you divide by -1 on both sides, that -1 will cancel and you'll still have 0 on the left. So x plus 5 equals 0, x equals -5, x plus 1 equals 0, subtract 1, x equals -1. So when x equals -5, y equals 0. Okay, because we replaced the y in the original problem with 0. When x equals -1, y equals 0. So we have the points -5, 0 and -1, 0. Okay, so let's graph everything that we have. -5, 0 is left 5 up 0. Okay, we also had -4, 3, left 4 up 3. We also had our vertex from before. Let's look back. Our vertex is -3, 4. So you can see left 3 up 4. We also had the point -2, 3. Left 2 up 3. We also had the point -1, 0. Left 1 up 0. Okay. The domain is -infinity to infinity because we could keep plugging in numbers forever. The range is -infinity, 4 bracket because the y values do not have a lowest value. Okay, you see the arrows? That's because if we kept plugging in, that parabola would keep going down. So there's not a lowest y value, so the y values start at -infinity. That means those y's just keep going down. The y values stop at 4. It is the highest y value. It's a bracket there because we have that point with a y value of 4. Okay, that is the end of the lesson.